So anyway, drum roll, please.
Drum roll, please. All
What do
right.
you got for us? What's hot?
So, all right.
Let's have a hot topic,
Hot topic. Hot topic.
like at the mall.
All right. So I was listening to this gentleman, Roy Vaden, and
Now, is he related to Darth?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Jeff. He's really his brother's
Jeff.
Jeff. Jeff Vaden. He was talking about building your personal brand. So what do you think? What do you think when I say build your personal brand? What is? Is that kind of do you
I
reject that idea, or do you like that needs some attention, or
I
what are your
think
thoughts on that?
that even if you can get the fire hot enough, it's hard to get the other person to stand still.
When you create your brand
When you
and you brand someone.
when you brand them. It was a bad joke.
Well, it's just
I don't, man. Here's my thing. I guess my take. My initial reaction to the idea of branding is something that even exists is kind of like my reaction to the conversation we had about passion.
Okay.
It's such a buzzword that it almost doesn't have meaning anymore.
Okay.
Building my personal brand. Well, what does that mean for me as an individual? Do I need a brand?
Okay.
I mean, I think in a sense we all have a brand, but I think what that really is kind of a function of our character and our well, character is probably the best thing to call it. Your integrity as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Character traits really are more brands than anything else. I don't really think about brands in a personal sense. That's kind of compartmentalized into a corporate thing. And if you're trying to sell something or sell
Right.
yourself as a purveyor of whiskey, for instance, or bourbon,
Yeah. Yeah.
or real estate, or whatever it is, if you've got something to sell, then you kind of do become a brand.
Right.
But I don't think most of us live within the realm of that concept. But I would say in an abstract, yeah, we kind of do have a brand, whether we
Yeah.
want one or not.
No, that's true. And I think you're spot on. I think, yeah, because what he talks
That's why
about a
they
little
pay me
bit.
the big bucks.
That's right. Although, didn't you say last week you didn't make a lot of money? Anyway,
That's right.
you're just not telling me. I get it. That's fine. No,
I don't
think,
get a lot. They just pay me in really large bills. The big, like, cardboard checks, I get a
Oh.
lot of those.
Get on those.
They're
Have you ever-
actually physically large. They're not worth
Have you ever
anything.
tried to do the digital deposit on those? I mean, you got to like stand on a ladder to get the picture.
Oh,
of
you haven't
those
had
to-
fun until you tried to cash one that's countersigned.
I'd like to cash this check, please.
It's an out-of-state two-party check. It's on a giant cardboard thing. Is that cool? What kind of ID do I need for that? DNA? Okay, cool, no problem.
Anyway, he's talking about, first of all, his company helps build people build personal brands, but he does not help organizations or companies. So he says if Google calls, they're not working for him.
Yeah, you can't help them anyway.
Well, that's probably true too. But he talks about people who are it's the devil. People who are mission driven, who have a mission driven message. So, and I listen to that and I think, okay, this is really us. This is really me. This is really you. This is what we want to do. We've got a mission. And so he starts out kind of what you were saying. It's all about personal. He starts out asking a question. Okay, in one word, what problem do you solve? In one word. And so, and this is where passion and this conversation are going to intersect. Shame. This is where they're going to intersect, because then he also brings up the word passion, and that's when I roll my eyes like, okay, we've always got to throw passion in these things. He's like, well, what are your passions? What are you this? And so anyway, I queried a few people around me. What kind of problems do you think I'm good at solving?
What kind of problems do I think you're good at solving? I don't
Yes.
even, it's hard for me to relate to that question because I think people are either good at solving problems or they're not.
Okay.
It's not about the type of problem, it's about the way your brain works.
Well, okay, back up a little bit and think about, okay, for example, you're familiar with Dave Ramsey?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay. So he solves one problem in one word, debt.
Debt. Even
So-
I knew.
Yes, that's what he solves.
Okay.
So that's his thing. In one word, he solves the problem of debt. So when you think of it in terms like that, of course, I know he's a big
And I
brand
have to
company.
look at you and go, what problem does Mark solve?
You don't have to. It's just it was you're my friend, and
No, 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 no.
I'm
I
gonna
want
ask
to.
you.
I want to now that you've asked
Okay,
me. Now that
all right.
you've queried me.
I've queried you. Sorry,
And
that does that
and we're
bug you? Should I
recording
not?
it, so I'm
Should I not say the word query?
no, 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 it's fine. I'm with it.
Am I getting in trouble for that?
I'm down with the you kids and all your mod lingo. You talking your talking your buzzwords. Um,
You kids.
there's different answers to this question
Okay.
because there's an answer like my first answer is a question. It's like, are you asking me what problem do you solve for me, or are you asking me if I was like general public population, people who know you who aren't me, and you were asking me that question because I got a feeling if you asked your wife, child, coworkers this question, you would get a remarkably different answer than if you asked me this question. Or at this question, the answer to this question is based on my personal experience or what I know about you.
I think it's based on what you know about me, what you've observed of me.
The problem you solve for most people is, and this will strike you as funny, and to the point that you will probably think that I'm ridiculous.
When would I ever?
I think for most people, you give them, and I'm not even sure how to phrase this in words, but a sense of assuredness. And it's not like you're giving them self-confidence. It's like there's a trust that people have in you, and if they feel like they've got you on their side, then they feel like that's all they need.
Hmm.
There's a level of assurance that I believe people receive from you. You make things feel okay.
Interesting. I'm writing this down.
And I that's probably really vague. You instill a sense of, and I wouldn't even call it security. I would call it like assuredness that it's going to be okay. But
Would you call it?
that's part of your problem solving. We talked a second ago about the solving what problems do you solve, and I wouldn't say that you solve a specific type of problem, but I would say that you solve problems in a specific type of way,
Okay.
and that's what you do. You could apply that to a myriad of problems. I've tried to.
Okay. It's more specific than most everyone else.
I can tell you
Has
what that
answered?
thing is.
Okay. What is that thing? That's what I'm after. I'm after the thing.
Okay,
What's the thing?
well, the thing is it's kind of related to the assurance thing.
And I don't think. First of all, I don't think that you're talking crazy. I mean, my one question though: do you think it's a blessed assurance?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
What question was I answering?
Specifically, you were being more specific. I said this was a lot more specific than other people have answered.
About the first question, which was not what you solve problems, but how you solve problems. Not what problems
Okay.
you solve, but your methodology. And the thing that makes you different than most people. Not that. That was what makes me different from most people. Work smarter, not harder. That's the encapsulation of how you solve problems. Most people, and it's very easy to see in this day and age because there's a big chasm that separates people who are more cognitive from people who are more emotional.
Okay.
You are like a cognitive person that is designed for emotional people to use. Is that weird? Uses probably sounds worse than it's meant.
I don't know. I
You're
don't
an
think-
accessible cognitive person. Andy is a very cognitive person who's accessible in a lot of ways, but not in a way that can help a lot of people because most people don't speak robot. You got to know how to speak robot to deal with him. He's a very specific kind of computer, and you have to know that computer language. You're like Windows or something that's very accessible. Anybody can operate this. Anybody can understand. Anybody can have a conversation with you. And you can make yourself understood, and you can understand what the other person is dealing with. Most people, especially when dealing with a difficult situation, stressful, can't lower the emotional threshold enough to think clearly.
Gotcha.
I know you're not perfect and you're not always that way, but you do that really well. You do that in ways other people don't do it. And it's recognizable. And that is the thing that gives people assurance. I can't calm myself down enough to think clearly right now, but I'll tell this to Mark, or I'll take this to Mark, or I'll share this with him, and he'll go, well, yeah, but here's not, and you'll give him the cool, calm, collected thing. Like, here's what you're not looking at. Here's how it really looks. This is what it's like. You provide perspective, which I don't know if I've mentioned to you in the past before how important perspective is.
Perspective is
Really,
important.
really important.
Okay.
And that gives people a level of assurance.
Interesting.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
And
Now,
I've seen you solve a myriad of different problems, always applying that same, even when it comes to like fixing things you don't know anything about. You don't get worked up about it. You don't freak
Tense.
out. You go, let's learn about it. Let's see what we can learn. Let's go study this thing. Work smarter, not harder. That's
Gotcha.
like I said, that's the encapsulation of it. That's how you would say it, but that's not necessarily how it appears to those outside.
Right. All right. So that's helpful. So how does this relate to what you told me probably about
You are welcome.
how does that relate to what you told me a year or two ago
A year or two ago.
when you told me that I have the gift of first contact? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
And by the way, I apologize for talking about me. It is my favorite subject, but I thank you for indulging me for a little bit here.
I'm glad to. I get so bored talking about myself. My
No, I
many,
like
many
talking.
exploits. I think
That's
it's
your
I think it's
$17 bill.
part and parcel of the same thing. Part and parcel of the same thing.
Okay.
People recognize that in you. It's part of that same thing that draws people toward you because you are not a danger. You are not out there smacking people on the head. There's something very generous and genuine in your personality. I've told you about it for years. I can't put a finger on it or explain to you why it's there. It's something you have and I don't. I can tell that. And I know it because I watch how people respond to you.
Interesting.
It's not because I'm like, oh, Mark, he's got a golden penis and everything he does is wonderful. It's like I watch how people look at you and how they react to you and how they respond to you. And it's like, this is a little, he's not that great. I mean, he cuts the cheese too when nobody's around. And
Right.
why does everybody think he's so great? But clearly people do. I mean, it's gone on for enough years now that I don't try to fight it or go. Well, remember the first time we met Ken Henry?
Oh gosh. Clay does, but I don't remember. I don't know if I do.
I don't want to
remember.
earn it the way Clay had to earn it.
Were we in the green building or in the dome?
We were in the
Did you
green
first
building.
come
We were
in the green building? Yeah, I remember experiencing.
We walked outside as he pulled into the parking lot.
Okay.
And he was just Kent. And he was lit up, and it was just like, and when church started, everybody was drawn to him. I remember talking about it. We were driving to work the next morning in your Isuzu.
Yes, the red rodeo.
And I was like, did you notice that? Did you see how everybody was like, just like, I know he's the dude, and he's got chicken nugget head, and but people were just like magnetically drawn to him.
Right.
I was, and I'm not that way. I'm the opposite. And it was like, huh. And it was like at that point, I started looking at you and going, you kind of got that same thing too. You're not like, Ken Henry, world famous integrity Hosanna recording artist.
I don't walk around going, Holy Ghost!
Yeah. But you've got what they would call, in the truest sense, what is referred to as charisma. It's
See,
it's personality, but it's personality on a spiritual level. It's
so
not just your
is that
human
what you
personality.
that's how you would explain charisma, or yeah, charisma? Is that have any relation to charismatic? Because I see myself as the
Yes,
least charismatic person,
I believe it does, but not the way charismatic.
not in a demonstrative sense.
Right. I believe that pure charisma has to do with the Holy Spirit being present inside of you, not something you're doing, but something the Holy Spirit is doing, which makes you attractive, draws people to you.
Interesting.
Yes, and I believe that is an absolute 100% legitimate reality. I've seen it too many times in too many people, disparate people, people you'd never expect to have it happen sometimes. I always liked it because kind of like the dude that wanted to be give me the gift so I can tell fortunes too. I wanted to be popular and people just suddenly like me for no reason and come up and go, I feel like I've known you forever. It took me years to like identify it, to see it, to acknowledge it for what it was. We're all just different people. That's not
Yeah.
who I am. It's not what I do.
Interesting. So okay, so that's still pretty broad. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint that in a word, isn't it?
I don't know. What do you want pinpointed?
I don't know.
What is it you're looking for?
I don't know. I'm looking for something to go, okay, yes, I can address that with my gifts and my talents. I can address that. So here's one of the things that he said. He didn't take credit for saying this, but I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Here, let me.
You want to say it?
No, I'm going to take credit for it after you do.
Oh, okay. He did mention who said it, but he talks about our uniqueness, and you have to find what you're unique. What you're unique. Your uniqueness is what you use to solve the problems. So, like for example, if we go back to Dave Ramsey, his uniqueness is cash. Cash is what he uses to solve the problem of debt.
Cash is
Like
a pretty good problem solver. It
it
gets a
is a
lot of
pretty good
flack,
problem.
but it does a really good
It is.
job.
It is. And whoever said money can't buy happiness,
True.
that's Daniel Tosh. He said that. He said anybody who says that money can't buy happiness has not seen anybody on a jet ski,
That's right.
because money can't buy happiness. You've never seen a sad person on a jet ski. Oh man, life sucks. Anyway, so this is what he said. He said you find your uniqueness so that you can exploit it for the use of others.
Say it again.
You find your uniqueness so that you can exploit it for the service of others.
Yeah.
So he said.
Yeah.
He's talking about, okay. So if you find out what problems you're good at solving, and then you can identify your uniqueness based on what problems you solve. So, like for example, if somebody solves, some lady she talks about she was shameful, and so she now has become vulnerable, and it has helped her shamefulness, and so that's her uniqueness, and so her vulnerability becomes the solution for shame, and so now she can help people with their shame by helping them to be more vulnerable.
Yeah, but nah.
No, I mean,
To me, it's
it's the
like it's
idea. You don't have to deal with. You don't have to. I mean, the
semantic.
technicalities
I'm
of
not.
if
No, 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 no,
that's
no, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. I'm not dealing with technicality. It's not semantics. This is tying back to something else we've talked about. We didn't talk to it. We talked about it. First of all, it sounds like a trap.
Okay, what
That's my first reaction. These problems I solve are going to tell you what kind of problems I'm good at. What it's going to tell me about this. It's going to tell me about that. My experience has been, and this is where we kind of talked about like guitar lessons. It wasn't so much that I had a passion to do something. It was that I was surprised to find out that I could.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we go on a journey of discovering things that we can do. And sometimes that's a journey of passion, and sometimes that's a journey of surprise. It's not necessarily preordained.
Okay.
That would be the first thing. So we should be open to being able to do things we've never done in ways that we've never done them. Otherwise, we fall into traps. We fall into that trap we've talked about the brain having these like ruts and ways we reason and ways we think, and we always fall back
The
into those
biases.
same
Yes.
biases, patterns, that sort of thing. So I'm very concerned about just thoughts that go in that. And, well, we got to be in this. We're in this structural thing, and then there was another thing, and now that slipped away from my brain. It was related though. Maybe that was both of them. The first one was about like, yeah, you don't always know what you're good at based on what you've done or been able to do so far. Sometimes those things are just leading you to the actual thing.
Right. And I would agree to that. But here would be my pushback on that. Like, for example,
Don't be pushing back, big boy.
I'm pushing back. I consider myself to be fairly good at Adobe After Effects. I can find my way around Adobe After Effects, and I can make something pretty stellar. But I don't like to. It's time consuming. It's neat to see the end product, and I want to see the end product more than I want to spend the time doing it. But if somebody's like, I don't know Adobe After Effects, and they're like, oh, I know a guy who does, and he can take care of this for you and fix that problem, and I end up fixing it. But it's like, I don't want to. And then I tell them, I'm very expensive and I'm very slow. And they're like, okay, fine. Take all the time you need. Here's
Work
all the money that
insurance.
you need. But I don't, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to spend all day on a computer doing After Effects.
Right.
Let's spend it talking with you doing this.
That's the difference between what you want to do and what you like to do.
Right. And what you're good at.
There's lots of things that I could do.
Right. But you discovered, like with music lessons, because you've taught Lexi probably more in the past 2 weeks than I have taught her probably in 6 months, trying to show her the very few things that I know on a guitar. And in 2 weeks, she's like, oh, I got these chords and I got this chord, and Doug told me to do this, and Doug told me that. And I'm like, that's just so, it's basic. I know it's basic stuff, but it's like, I couldn't even teach her that.
But you're dad.
That's true too. I am dad. That's true.
Believe me.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it.
Believe me, that's a huge factor.
So that wasn't a fair analogy, I guess.
It's not unfair necessarily, but yeah, on its own, it's not anything substantive. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
That's
you were doing
No,
great
it's
stuff.
fine.
Yeah, I'm
I
the
was doing
same way.
great
That's
stuff.
why I hate that question about passion and what's your passion and
Yeah,
what's your.
yeah.
Well, ask me today and ask me tomorrow. You probably get two different answers. Like
Yeah.
when I'm in the middle, like this week, like into last week, I thought of a thing I wanted to do, and I've been like OCD.
Yeah.
And it's not even enjoyment or anything like it. It's just like I probably told you this before, once I think of it, once I imagine it, it's like if that imagination becomes too real, then I have to make it real. Like I don't have any choice. I have to follow this.
You have to make that materialize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my passion might be something completely different today than it is tomorrow. I finished that project yesterday, so today it was like, ta-da, it's a brand new
Here we
day.
go.
What are we going to do
What's
today? Which the answer turned out to be not a lot. I
Well,
got some
okay.
stuff done, but if I'm that productive for 5, 6, 8 days in a row, I'm like, but yeah, the passion thing it's a misstep, but
And I
we've
agree.
covered that
I agree.
ground. We've covered that. So
We have, and here's something though. Here's something that I've observed, and we'll go back to the very opening of this our call, and not to the opening of where you probably starting this, but
okay.
actually opened our call a few minutes ago, or however long it's been, an hour ago. I sensed two real things you were very passionate about, and I was like. And now that we're talking about this, I'm going, it's easy now for me to see the two things that you were very passionate about.
What's that?
Well, last week you mentioned, I think it was last week, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, you mentioned how when you're doing your bass lesson right before this, that you're like, okay, we got to wrap this up. And then, because you've got your call with Mark. And so, which, by the way, I feel the same way about getting to spend this time with you. And then you talked about getting paid. And so there's two passions right there.
Yes.
You like chatting with me. You like getting paid, which I like getting paid too. And I like chatting with you. So now we just got to figure out how to take those passions, put those together so that we can get paid for being together.
There you go.
This is where all this comes together. It's like, okay, so then now how can we hone this into what, careful there.
Sorry.
How can we hone you're not driving, are you? How can we hone this in to solving a problem, which, we're kind of getting closer with this whole, okay, we're mentoring, we're men, getting together. We're helping, flush things out. Let's talk about these things. Let's figure out, what's happening to the masculine man in America. And let's hope, that can be some type of help for someone or solve a problem. So that's where that's the only thing I'm getting at with this whole conversation is thinking is how can we hone that down and circle that in and focus that? Because then what it comes to is priority dilution. When we have diluted focus, we get diluted results. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to focus on this thing. I don't want to do After Effects and Gentlementor with Doug. I just want to focus on this one thing. It's solid, rig down here, real good focus, real tight, and then find out a way to get paid.